Tell us about the scary stories that have happened to you at work. It's not that scary, but when I was 19, I worked in a hotel. For most of the shift, there was only one employee on the premises. Around 1 or 2 in the morning, a married couple with children came to the lobby in a panic with all their luggage. The man said they were leaving immediately. I informed them that they would still be charged for the night, blah blah blah. He agreed, but said they still had to leave. I thought that maybe one of the kids needed to go to the hospital or something. My wife took the children to the car, and my husband asked if something happened in that room. I didn't understand what he meant, so he repeated his question. He said that the TVs were turning on and off by themselves, which is actually not uncommon for an old hotel. However, he added that both children sat up in bed at the same time without waking up and started crying. The father had to shake them to wake them up. They didn't even know they were crying. The family was sure that there were drives in the room, and one of them targeted the children. It took them a while to get out of there. Later, I asked a colleague if there are ghosts here. She said that once a medium had stayed at the hotel and told her that there were many different spirits here. I don't remember verbatim. She described them, but none of them seemed evil. I concluded that either there was a tricky ghost there, or the children were playing a bad joke. I don't believe in occasions, but one case has been bothering me. I work in a geriatric nursing home. We had one elderly lady who was already near death. She was constantly complaining that she saw her son-in-law in the chair. It might have been true, but he had long been in the other world. As far as I know, their relationship was not the best. Her husband sincerely hated her. She claimed that he was making a face at her. She would also ask, "Do you see all those people hanging from the ceiling?" She thought people and animals were burning. She told me how her dead relatives came to her and made faces. They burned in the flames before her eyes. I hope I will never have such hallucinations. I worked in a boarding program for teenage girls. They were housed in historic buildings donated by the city. Most of them were built in the 19th century and looked creepy, to put it mildly. During my night shifts, I used to walk around with a flashlight every 30 minutes to check the territory. But in the room around the corner, at the end of the corridor, my hair always stood on end. I could feel in my skin that someone was watching me. I would turn my head to the side, and someone would follow me when I came back. A few times I even heard footsteps. After a few months at that job, I had a chance to talk to the girl who lived in that room. I suggested that it must be nice to live in a room without neighbors. She replied that I would rather have a roommate than stay there alone. When I go to bed, a shadow in the form of a human figure hangs over the bed. It is constantly watching me. It makes it very difficult for me to fall asleep. She's not the type to make things up, and when she told me what happened to her in that room, I got the chills. Presumably, the ghosts in the house for younger girls are even more intrusive. People there have seen figures sneaking around several times. We always tried to stay calm so that the children wouldn't get scared, but to be honest, there were nights when I was afraid to go out into the hallway myself. I went to check the chemical store at 3 in the morning. It was dark as a cave. There is a switch near the entrance to the store. It works with a delay of 1 second every time it is turned on or off. The store has a fire exit door, the kind that closes slowly and has a small window in the center. I went inside and checked it out. Everything was normal, nothing suspicious. When I left, I closed the door and flicked the switch. Before the switch went off and it was completely dark, I saw a solid black figure standing in the middle of the store. I was standing near the door so I could see it through the window. It wasn't my reflection because it was dark outside and the light inside was clinically white. Also, I was on the side of the door, so there was no way I could have created this reflection. It was not just a fuzzy silhouette in the dark. The figure was standing in the middle of the room in bright light, 5 meters from the door. When the light went out, I froze and then quietly walked away. I didn't even look in the nearby road mirror to see what was behind me. There was nothing wrong with the store when I checked it, and I don't get paid to investigate supernatural shit. Once I was doing an apprenticeship at a hotel. My 16-year-old ass heard that night shifts paid more, so I decided to sacrifice my homework to stay up late. But it didn't go as planned. One guy booked a room for the whole week. He refused to clean, but he came down early in the morning to say hello to me and exchange a few words of politeness before he left. He seemed really nice. A week passed, but he didn't come to check out. No one saw him leave. So I asked security to come and check his room with me, but there was one problem. The room had not been slept in. The bed looked as if no one had touched it. There was no way it could look like that after a week of living there. We were surprised and then looked up. There was an eyeball hanging from the ceiling. The eyeball was covered in blood. It didn't look like a sheep or a goat's eye. It looked so much like a human eye that the guard threw up on the spot. We called the police. Chaos ensued. We are in the center of the UK and guns are not uncommon here. But there is no logical explanation for what happened. In the end, I quit my job and refused to communicate with my former colleagues. The police tried to call me, but I ignored them. To this day, I refuse to let strangers into my home. I work nights at a hotel. I've seen ghosts, but they don't really scare me. It took me a while to realize that they were something else, not just flesh and blood people. No, the scariest thing I ever experienced was when a 6-foot-tall drunk tried to settle a score with me in a fit of rage because his pregnant wife was hiding from him in our hotel. He spent most of the night trying to track her down to no avail until his friend noticed her getting ice. He started throwing everything he could at me. So I called the police. While the cops were on their way, he broke into my wife's room and completely smashed it. She came downstairs in a panic, convinced that we would prosecute her for what her husband had done. I took her to the staff office, called the managers to tell them what was going on and why I brought the guest to the restricted area. So the inadequate man was forbidden to enter the territory. If he does, he will be arrested on the spot. I know he returned to the city several times, but he stayed in a budget hotel on the other side of the highway. They tolerate the behavior of lesser scumbags. So, the ghost of a 180-centimeter tall man living in the kitchen. When I first saw him, he saw me too. At first, I thought it was a guest, even though he flew out the door without touching the ground. The cooks who have been working there for a long time notice all sorts of devilish things. For example, the stove lights up or turns off by itself. Pots and pans rotate on the hob when their backs are turned. The door closed by itself several times. And once, when the manager was saying that ghost stories are crap, a pack of napkins flew off the shelf and slapped him in the face. Flying at least half a meter, there are 2 ghosts in the hall. One is an old woman in a Victorian funeral dress and black veil who seems unaware that she is dead, trying to attend someone's funeral. The other looks like a woman in her early 20s, wearing a white dress with ruffles and tiny black velvet shoes. She is a prostitute and loves attention. She is not visible when the hotel is busy, but she begins to appear as a ghost and as a figure reflected in the windows if the hotel is half empty or, God forbid, closed. The former manager used to see her out of the corner of her eye when we were closed in the early days of the COVID. She would regularly ask me to come early because she was scared to death of being alone there after dark. The last one, whom I have never seen, lives on the 5th floor. He likes to make a lot of noise by stomping back and forth in the hallway. In the early days of the coronavirus, about a week before we were quarantined, a guest called us and complained that someone was running around the hallway all night. She was the last guest in the whole damn building. After we reopened, a man and his sister moved in on the 5th floor. She was having dinner with a friend, and he was watching TV. His wallet and keys fell and flew a meter across the room. Assuming it was an accident, the man returned them to the night table. Not a minute later, they flew across the room and hit the dresser. After 10 minutes, he was downstairs with the luggage, refusing to stay a minute longer. Friends, thank you for watching. In the comments below the video, please write your scary stories that happened at work. Dear friends, thank you for every like, comment, subscription, and call. Thank you for watching to the end. See you in the next video.